Welcome. Today I've following up on a recent presentation that I did with Dr. Juris. I wanted to share a presentation that I put together for an event that I think is very important about aging, and I've been wanting to do a solo version of my podcast, or really it's now a YouTube channel for people that are following me. So welcome today. The challenge is something that most fitness professionals and most older adults have really been really completely backwards on. And I think, being in the industry only just 25 years, it's still at its infancy. I've spoken to owners and operators that have been in the business for 40 years. I've seen all the strength training lines. I've seen what's really now on the trend and what's really being adopted by the 4 different generations in the gym space or just really addressing health and wellness. So the story that I want to start off with is getting older basically means you're getting weaker. And the best thing to do is not to take it easy, not to lift light, and not to do high reps. There is a place to do high reps. There is a place to do mobility work and chair yoga and all these things that we promote as you get older, because we have to scale according to the individual. But the science of human physiology would disagree loudly if we really took the time to really look at the standard approach of what I just finished saying, which is lighter activity, higher reps, really doesn't fix the problem that we're seeing. And this research is, I cited it there, and it's based on recent research that was published in 2025, Tøien et al., Suchomel and Hughes and Latella et al., some of the sharpest minds really in the space. And we've also seen it in applied practice with doctors and strength coaches. I've seen it with my 89-year-old father. So I know it's an N of 1, but I want to frame it first so people understand this. Most people in the industry hear about sarcopenia, and sarcopenia is a lag measurement. If we're looking back and saying, oh, wow, the person has age-related muscle loss. It's been a focus of researchers and clinicians, and they've given it massive amount of attention. But the problem of sarcopenia is only half the story. If you look at the graph here, you'll see that the gray line is that muscle mass that declines with age. It's slow, it's gradual, it's manageable, and it really looks, if you really look at now the red line, and I've spoken recently in my previous episode with Dr. Juris, is the neural drive that is what we start losing first in the aging process. And for those people that are not at that age yet, aging starts right around 30. So if we look at that red line, we see that decline, and here it starts at 40, but unfortunately starts sooner. But the significant fall-offs really happen in their 70s, but you'll see that decline and that gap is what we're trying to really refer to, and that's called dynapenia. And that key insight really is one that challenges or changes everything about being an older adult. It's basically the nervous system fails before the muscle tissue does. So this is really what should be the message to the community in the fitness space, as well as in just how we work on not only health span, but we also lifespan is more quality of life. So how do we do this? We have to understand what does dynapenia do on a tissue level. Basically, strength drops off because we're losing fast twitch muscle fibers first. They're the ones that are responsible for speed, power. They're the ones that if we start losing that fast twitch muscle fiber response, that will usually lead to the ability of quickly responding or producing force. So the ability to catch yourself if you've misstepped. The ability for you to see oncoming traffic all of a sudden last minute and jump back onto that curb. So there's a trap that most exercise recommendation falls into, and we defer to always say, hey, let's do walking. Let's do lighter resistance. And there's a place to do that. There is reasons to do that. However, we need to also advocate what stimulates fast twitch muscle fiber. And that's not necessarily just being under a barbell. It could be in a leg press. It could be on a selectorized piece of equipment. So I think there is a renaissance in strength training more today, which I'm happy to see. But the way that it's being administered is what we need to do is a better job at being able to not, when a member joins, to be able to address this in a meaningful way, is to have a standardized approach to training, is to teach them what is overload, how do you develop strength. So the protocol that I'm going to talk about today didn't invent this one. This has been well known, maximal strength training. It's percentage load training. And how do people find out this number? Is they do an estimated maximum. They focus on either a 10 rep maximum, and what I'm going to advocate is 3 to 5 reps, because the margin of error on most studies that show 10 reps is a little bit larger. 3 to 5 is a little bit more realistic, and it's not going to lift to failure. So there's the concern of getting hurt doing 1 rep is a high risk. I understand that, depending upon which population you're looking at. But the mechanisms for this is those maximal efferent neural drive. That is the sweet spot that we're trying to target. We're trying to not just really break down muscle fiber, we're trying to recruit as much of the nervous system as possible, the most motor units, to stimulate the stimulus that is used to reverse dynapenia. So we're trying to fight into the loss of these fast twitch muscle fibers by using that portion of the nervous system. So it's a myth, but it's really here's the myth that I want to bust. In research, about 90% of 1RM loads are significantly greater when you're activating muscle compared to 60, 70, and 80% as you see here. But this is actually an ideal load. So you could vary the loads. You could vary the types of stimulus that you want to do. So I'm not saying that you only have to lift heavy. You could vary the stimulus based on the level of fitness, but eventually you still need to tap into that higher load. What I liked about the study that I mentioned at the start of this presentation was it discussed another study about older adults doing volume-based training at lower intensities. One study looked at older adults performing 100 bodyweight squats every day for 4 months. Basically, there was a 0 increase in maximal strength because they never achieved the threshold that would cross them into the neural drive to get that adaptation. So we really need to understand, we need to tap into that intensity. We need to challenge the individual where they're at. That's why having the right piece of equipment on your gym floor, or starting the person off based on an assessment or a screen, is really important. This presentation is not going to review assessments or screening. I'm just talking about how we should be thinking about the lifespan and longevity of that individual and how to better treat dynapenia. So safety and intensity. I know what you're thinking about. Heavy loads, older adults, that sounds like a liability court case. Let me address this directly. Heavy loads are safe when velocity is managed. So the danger really is in training isn't the weight itself, it's an uncontrolled velocity. Specifically, the area of eccentric motion. So when you're lengthening that muscle under tension, that's where the injury risks peak. So what we want to do is work on controlled movement that creates a change of direction and pauses. So you have that eccentric, concentric, and then, eccentric, isometric, concentric movement that we're training, but we're focusing on the intent to be as explosive as possible. To add a little bit more color, I talked about a controlled eccentric. I gave it a number of 2 to 3 seconds, as long as it's controlled within form. And they're pause for a second and then change that direction forcefully. That's what we're trying to do. And we're trying to focus on this sequence as opposed to uncontrolled. Now, there is reason to maybe do a target drop, a fast eccentric, and then a controlled drop portion, and then a change of direction. But that's more advanced, and that's for another discussion. I'm talking about the myth that I want to bust is heavy loads are a liability, and that's not true. It's not the load, it's the control, it's the velocity control. And this is where we have great equipment on the training floor already. We just need to add a little bit more visibility of what we're lifting and how we're lifting it. That's where technology, wearable technology today, could really add to that training experience. So what I want to do is talk about a little bit more that eccentric phase, specifically because most practitioners don't really train it. And this is just, they just survive it. There's 3 ways of handling lowering the portion. A passive lengthening, controlled. Some people call it super slow. I prefer more a slow, forced, eccentric. The load exceeds really the capacity to fight it under control, and then there's that ability to overcome that force. And then we have the active eccentric, which is the ability to decelerate under that control. The forced eccentric is, hey, this is too heavy. I gotta dissipate. The third option is really where we often see it studied in anatomy classes of how this works. Here we see the actin and myosin slide filament theory in those people that have paid attention to A&P, anatomy and physiology. This is how we build muscle fiber. This is what happens when muscle fiber gets damaged. It gets rebuilt, it gets stronger, there is compensation, there's growth. So dropping the weight under control is meaningful. Dropping the weight in not being aware of it could be considered to be lazy, especially with a beginner. However, there is reasons to have explosive eccentrics in team sports or advanced athletes. So the important thing here is, again, we're talking about longevity, health span. We want to play with these speeds and play with the targeting of these speeds, but we want to start with controlled eccentrics. Time under tension versus time in action. You've probably heard of time under tension. It's a training variable. The idea here is that longer the set equals more stimulus. I want to reframe that. I want to just really talk about that time is kind of an arbitrary it's an arbitrary duration, really. We chase specific tension. That's really what we're trying to do. So we're trying to elicit a high tension, an active braking, and then engagement of that slide filament, the Tøien engagement specifically, and then that 1 second pause, and then so we could stop all momentum in this case, and then create force. Momentum's not a bad thing. Momentum's necessary in how we move. That's how effectively we use our muscles, kind of like a slingshot. But time in action really is about the quality of tension in each phase. So the total duration of the set is an old construct that is trying to optimize how long you're under that stimulus. I would say time in action is a new construct that talks about your load under an applied maximal intent. To kind of really make sense of it is you're trying to do a specific adaptation. So you're going to play with those phases of movement as opposed to just looking at the duration of the stimulus. So really important to understand. I would say for beginners, just stress controlled eccentrics, a change in momentum before you teach momentum as a movement. Eventually you want to have people be explosive, because if you try to jump or change and sidestep an oncoming car, you have to teach momentum. So there is a reason to teach it. I'm not saying that you shouldn't, and to keep to really look at it as time in action over time in tension. So the traditional strength training program really breaks down for older adults, particularly really looking at the velocity curve here, and that's what this is. And I also had a conversation in one of my episodes talking about barbell velocity, and what we want to look at in this force curve is early in the set, rep 1 or looks at a high bar velocity, and then rep 5, rep 6, we start seeing a decline in velocity. Some people call it garbage reps. I think it's a great indicator of training stimulus. What we want to take a look at is control that, use it as a regulation type of tool. Auto regulation is the term. If we're looking at a specific percentage drop, then we want to stop that not a test, but that monitoring of that set, and either decide, do we need another set? Are they stimulated enough? We don't want to see dramatic drops in the set by set, and this is where technology really helps in looking at velocity loss, but also looking at power loss, peak power loss. For older adults, metabolic accumulation like lactate, hydrogen ions, even though they're an energy source, they're not a reason for fatigue. It keeps occurring, and the push into that fatigue state, again, those are energy sources. There are other things that contribute to that. What we want to see is how that nervous system is performing, and we want to keep an eye on, are they losing speed? And we can't be making those decisions on the eye of the beholder, regardless of how many years of experience a professional has. Having biofeedback is essential, and I think teaching someone how to actually do this effectively. What we were talking about, how do we take advantage of this, right? How do we take advantage of quality reps? If we look at here, typically a person could do quality reps earlier on in their set, as represented here in this fatigue problem. So there's a modality, a style of training or that you could use. Consider it one tool in your toolbox. Cluster sets. Traditional sets is, hey, we're going to do a set of 10, set of 8, set of 6, whatever that is. But what we're going to do here is take advantage of your metabolic and mechanical abilities to do work at higher intensities. So we drive the neural drive. I can pick 75 to 90% of your load, and I could put it into smaller sets of 3 to 5 reps. I'll recommend what this looks like in the following slide. But what this does is this gives you enough of that 90% 1RM accumulated stress to address the fatigue problem. So, because that fatigue problem sometimes also leads to poor quality reps, and that's where we see the eccentric issue of injury. So what we want to do is break those up in chunks and maybe do small rest periods. So there's many ways of skinning this stimulus, but the protocol looks pretty simple and straightforward. Here we see a recommendation, a frequency. I would say for beginners, real true beginners, 1 time a week is sufficient. As you progress, you could do this 2 to 3 times a week. But the individual, you'll see this through the work that you're being tracked. So here's just a recommendation of how to increase load over a period of time. So it's more concrete. This is what it looks like for someone that's a little bit more, has a base or has a foundation. For a beginner, again, I would cut back that frequency to 1 time a week. As an example, horizontal leg press, we would do 2 sets of a warm-up, kind of teaching the person the what you would like to see in speed of movement, and then loading them up. Prior to this, you've already done that 3 to 5 rep repetition maximum, or that one time that you program this into the client's workout or into your own workout. It is training day is actually a test day, and testing days are training day. So your goal is to always trying to achieve you want to basically, just by that 4th rep, not be able to do a 5th rep without it breaking down. And if you are, then there's reasons to progress this. So this one workout might be programmed every 4th or every 6th day of your workout regimen, but it's a tool, again, in your toolbox. It's not the only way to train. But what I like about it is it addresses the issue of neural drive. So with every rep, this protocol really follows that principle of time and action. And the goal here is to move as fast as possible. That's really the key intent here, is to focus in on that. What we want to talk about in this slide here is a study by Fiteron, Wang, Scanlon, Berg on older adults using this modality have improved their results. At 90% of a load, they've improved by 2.5% their strength gains per single per a single training session. Okay, that's powerful. That helps people with their quality of life. Compared to a moderate load of 70 to 80% of a 1RM, it improved it by 1.5%. So that's even 40% greater than selecting, different intensities at a lighter load. So the goal here is really to be about, you want to do 1% of our strength per year, after middle age, really. If you remember prior a couple slides ago, we talked about reversing dynapenia and that strength decline to fight. You're going to be able to slow that and move that curve to the right. And that's really the goal, is to have a functional bonus by doing this, so you could improve walking efficiency. They have stronger legs for running or jogging or for gardening or for playing with their grandchildren or for taking a hiking trip. So the idea here is so they could move through life feeling lighter, less fatigued, and have less and less side effects. Mm-hmm. So the evidence really for cluster loading in meta-analysis, you basically see it. It's pretty significant. It favors cluster loading. So again, this is a tool that you should be having in your toolbox. And again, it could be done in any piece of equipment. You don't really necessarily need the latest and greatest digital technology. You could use something that's really simple and slap it onto a barbell, or use a selectorized piece of equipment that gives you speed of movement or rate of force production back. So there's different tools: heavy loads, cluster structure, active eccentrics. The antidote really for an optimal aging intervention program incorporates these concepts, and the whole idea is to really stress the nervous system, and really to help implement this protocol in your community. So it's never too late. The study showed that they took people after the age of 70 and administered this protocol, and it restored a lot of the untrained younger adults, not only the older adults, to their population baseline, as well as it improved their stimulus to enjoy their life. So here's what I want to leave you with. The risk isn't in lifting heavy. The risk is in remaining weak. And that's really what I feel could prevent falls, loss of independence, metabolic decline, functional limitations. These are outcomes that are underrated, and not underrated, but untreated in dynapenia. And that's the standard. The standard prescription of light exercise and high reps doesn't address the problem. They are a necessary metabolic need by lifting those loads, but it doesn't manage the decline. So this maximal approach really is never too late to implement. There's plenty of research supporting it. I hope this is really helpful for you. I really want everyone to try to implement a solution like this in your community, in your business, and I look forward to sharing more of these as I talk to different professionals in our community. So thanks again for checking in to BioInsights.